My daughter has no idea I own 51% of her father-in-law's company, and I'm worth $2.1 billion. She thinks I'm just a poor seamstress from Queens. One Thanksgiving night, she invited me to dinner at her father-in-law's mansion. She seated me in the back row near the kitchen door. Then she proposed sending me to a nursing facility with $3,000 a month as charity. The following Monday, my lawyer called an emergency board meeting, and I walked into that boardroom and sat in her father-in-law's chair. Thank you so much for being here with me. If you're still watching, take a moment to tell me, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments so I know you're here. And just a quick note, this story includes some dramatized details for storytelling and learning purposes. Any similarity to real people or situations is purely coincidental, but the message behind it is meant to be meaningful and helpful. The boardroom reeked of expensive leather and the scent of power that had gone unchallenged for decades. 51 floors above Manhattan, surrounded by men in suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I sat in silence and let them wonder why I was there. William Morrison stood at the head of the mahogany table. His silver hair perfectly coiffed, his tailored navy suit crisp enough to cut glass. At 72, he still carried himself like a man who'd never heard the word no. His eyes kept flicking to me, confusion rippling across his face every time they landed on my simple gray cardigan and sensible flats. I could see the question forming, why is the seamstress from Queens sitting at this table? My daughter Jessica wasn't here yet. I'd made sure of that. This moment needed to unfold in a particular order. Mrs. Sullivan. William said finally, his voice carrying that particular blend of condescension and politeness. I'm not sure, there's been some kind of mistake. This is a closed board meeting. There's no mistake, I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. 68 years of living teaches you which battles require shouting and which require something else. The youngest board member shifted uncomfortably. The other two exchanged glances. They knew who I was, the way wealthy families know to help the mother-in-law from Queens who'd never quite fit into their gleaming world. William's jaw tightened. Mrs. Sullivan, I really must insist. I'm getting ahead of myself, I interrupted. Let me start from the beginning. I folded my hands on the table. My wedding ring, the simple gold band James had saved 3 months to buy, catching the November light. Outside, Manhattan glittered. Inside, the air had gone still. My name is Margaret Sullivan. I'm 68 years old. I've lived in the same house in Queens for 43 years. I worked as a seamstress for most of my adult life, and before that, I helped my husband James run his plumbing business. I paused. To most of you, I've been invisible for 15 years. William's expression shifted from irritation to alarm. But to understand how I ended up here holding the future of this company in my hands, you need to know where I came from. You need to know about James, about Jessica, about the choices I made that no one knew about. I looked directly at William, and about the moment 15 years in the making when I finally stopped being silent. The boardroom was absolutely quiet now. Outside, the city moved on. Up here, everything had gone still. The story I was about to tell would change everything. It would shatter illusions, upend family dynamics, and force every person in this room to reconsider what they thought they knew about the woman from Queens who'd spent 15 years being invisible by choice. But first, they needed to understand how it all began. I was born in 1955 in a 2-bedroom apartment above a Polish bakery in Queens. My father was a bus driver. My mother cleaned houses. I learned early that money didn't make you better than anyone else, but not having it made life harder. In 1975, when I was 20, I met James Sullivan. He was 22, a plumber's apprentice with calloused hands and a kind smile. We married in 1977. In 1981, our daughter Jessica was born. James worked hard. By the 90s, he'd built a small plumbing and building maintenance company. Nothing fancy, but steady. He taught me everything he knew about buildings, how they worked, what broke, what lasted. Margaret, he'd say, a building is like a person. You look at the bones, not the paint. I didn't know then how much that lesson would matter. In 2003, James died. He was 48, a heart attack on a job site. He left me $3 million in life insurance and $8 million from selling his business. $11 million total. Jessica was 22, in college, grieving. I was 48, a widow, alone. I could have lived comfortably on that money for the rest of my life. But I didn't want comfortable. I wanted purpose. I hired a lawyer. Robert Foster's office was small but sharp. He'd handled James's business contracts. I want to invest this money, I told him, carefully, intelligently. What do you know about investing? Nothing, but I'm going to learn. I spent 2003 and 2004 learning. Books, seminars, financial statements. In 2004, I made my first stock investments. Google's IPO at $85 a share. I bought 20,000 shares. Apple was trading around $50. I bought 10,000 shares. Amazon was $38. I bought 15,000 shares. But stocks weren't enough. I remembered what James taught me, look at the bones. In 2004, I started buying buildings, not in Manhattan, in Queens, in the Bronx, in Brooklyn. Buildings with good bones but terrible management, broken pipes, neglected tenants, cheap landlords who'd run them into the ground. I'd buy them for pennies, use James's knowledge to fix them properly, then sell them when the market turned. Between 2004 and 2006, New York real estate exploded. The buildings I'd bought for $300,000 were worth $900,000. By 2007, my portfolio looked like this. Tech stocks, $35 million. Real estate, $70 million. Other investments, $20 million. Cash reserves, $25 million. Total, $150 million. In 4 years, I'd turned $11 million into $150 million. Not through luck, through James's lessons and my own careful work. That summer, Jessica called. Mom, I met someone special. His name was Brandon Morrison, son of William Morrison, founder of Morrison Capital Group. I was happy for her. I had no idea what was coming. In September 2008, the financial crisis hit. Lehman Brothers collapsed. Bear Stearns failed. The entire financial system was on the brink. And Morrison Capital, the company my daughter's future father-in-law had built, was 48 hours from bankruptcy. They needed $50 million. I had $150 million. I could save them. The question wasn't whether I could. The question was whether I should. And more importantly, would they ever know it was me? I sat in my small living room in Queens, surrounded by furniture I'd had for 20 years, and thought about my daughter. She was falling in love with a man whose family was about to lose everything. I could save them. But I'd do it my way. Silently, invisibly. I'd give them 15 years to show me who they really were. 15 years to see if they'd treat me with respect when they thought I had nothing. 15 years to see if my daughter would choose love or money. I picked up the phone. Robert, I need to set up a Delaware LLC, anonymous ownership, and I need it done in 72 hours. Jessica met Brandon Morrison in July 2007 at a charity gala in Manhattan. She was 26 3 years into her PR career, confident in the woman she'd become. Or so I thought. In August, Brandon came to Queens. I could see his discomfort the moment he stepped inside our apartment. Jessica watched his face, saw him take in the worn furniture, the kitchen table where I did my sewing work. Mom, why don't we go out for dinner? Jessica said quickly. Brandon's not really... it's more comfortable at a restaurant. I saw the way she looked at our home, through his eyes. In October, Jessica called me, anxious. Mom, I need you to understand something. Brandon's family is... They're different. They're old money, Manhattan, Connecticut estate. His father owns Morrison Capital. I know, honey. So, when you meet them, maybe don't mention the sewing or Queens. I was quiet. I'm not ashamed of you, Mom. I want this to go well. But her voice told a different story. The first dinner at the Morrison estate was in February 2008. Before we went in, Jessica pulled me aside. Mom, please. Let me do the talking, and if they ask about your work, maybe just say you do alterations that sounds more professional. Inside the house was massive. Crystal chandeliers, oil paintings, staff in formal uniforms. William Morrison greeted us in the foyer. 72 years old, silver hair, custom suit. So you're Jessica's mother. He looked me up and down. A seamstress. How quaint. Before I could respond, Jessica laughed, nervously. Mom does beautiful work, very skilled. Patricia Morrison appeared. Brandon's mother, diamonds, Chanel suit. How convenient, she said, looking at my dress. You can make your own clothes. Jessica blushed, said nothing. We sat down to dinner. I was placed at the far end of the table near the kitchen door. Jessica sat close to Brandon near William and Patricia. Throughout dinner, William dominated conversation. Business, deals, the Morrison legacy. At one point, he turned to me. So, Margaret, what do you think about the current market conditions? Before I could answer, Jessica cut in. Mom doesn't really follow finance Dad Morrison. She's more hands-on, practical work. Dad Morrison, she'd already adopted the title. Patricia smiled. How refreshing. Someone who works with their hands. Jessica nodded eagerly. Yes, Mom's very good at what she does. I watched my daughter. Saw her trying to fit me into their world by making me smaller. After dinner in the car, Jessica turned to me. Thank you for being, quiet. I know it's hard, but they're just getting to know you. Jessica. Please, Mom, I really like Brandon. This could be something real. Just give them time to warm up to you. I didn't say what I was thinking. They'll never warm up to me because you've already told them I'm not worth their time. Through the summer and fall of 2008, the financial crisis escalated. I heard Brandon on the phone when he visited Jessica's apartment. Dad's company needs capital. $50 million or we're bankrupt. Jessica's face went pale. Can you get it? We're trying. After he left, Jessica called me. Mom, Brandon's family is going through something difficult. I need to be supportive. So, maybe we should skip our weekly dinners for a while. I need to focus on being there for him. Of course, honey. And Mom, when you do come over, maybe wear something nicer. Brandon mentioned that your clothes are a little worn. That hurt more than William's condescension, because it came from my daughter. In September, Brandon proposed. Jessica called me crying. Happy tears. He asked me to marry him, Mom. Can you believe it? I'm so happy for you, baby. There's just one thing. Her voice changed. Careful. The wedding is going to be small. Family only. And Brandon's family they're very traditional. So the seating arrangement might be a little formal. What does that mean? It means you'll probably be near the back, with some of the extended family and staff. It's just how they do things. I sat in my small living room in Queens, surrounded by furniture I'd had for 20 years, and calculated in my head. I had $150 million in carefully managed accounts. I could save William Morrison. The question wasn't whether I could. The question was whether I should. And more importantly, would he ever know it was me? I called Robert Foster on October 15, 2008. I need to set up a Delaware LLC, anonymous ownership, layered through offshore trusts, and I need it operational within 72 hours. Robert paused. Margaret, this is serious infrastructure. May I ask why? I'm going to save a company from bankruptcy, and no one can know it's me. For how long? 15 years, maybe more. Robert didn't ask why, he just said, I'll handle it. 5 days later, MS Holdings LLC existed. Delaware registration, nominee directors in the Cayman Islands, a paper trail that led through 3 shell companies, 2 trusts, and a Liechtenstein foundation. Legally bulletproof, completely opaque. But the structure wasn't enough. I needed a face. Robert, you'll be the registered agent. You'll attend every board meeting. You'll vote my shares. You'll answer their questions. What do I tell them? That you represent an institutional investor, anonymous, that's all. They'll ask more. Let them ask. You're a lawyer. You know how to deflect. On October 25th, MS Holdings made an offer to Morrison Capital Group $50 million for 51% equity. William Morrison's lawyers reviewed it for 3 days. They had no choice. The company was collapsing. On October 28th, the deal closed. I owned 51% of William Morrison's company. He had no idea. For the next 15 years, Robert Foster became the ghost at every board meeting. William tried to find out who MS Holdings really was. In 2009, he hired a private investigator. The trail died in the Cayman Islands. In 2011, he demanded Robert reveal the beneficial owner. Robert cited attorney-client privilege and corporate confidentiality. In 2014, William tried to force a bylaw change requiring all shareholders to disclose identities. Robert's response: that would violate our original investment agreement. We'd sue for breach. You'd lose. William backed down. Every year, Robert attended meetings, voted on my behalf, approved budgets, signed documents, and every year William grew richer on my capital. The company I'd saved thrived. William gave interviews about his brilliant leadership during the crisis. He never once mentioned the $50 million that saved him. December 13th, 2008, Jessica's wedding day. I arrived early wearing my best dress, navy blue, 20 years old but well-maintained. Jessica met me at the door. Beautiful, uncomfortable. Mom, I need to talk to you about the seating. Okay. You're going to be in the back row with some of Brandon's distant cousins. I stared at her. It's not personal, Mom. It's just how Brandon's family does things. By prominence and I'm not prominent. Please don't make this difficult. This is my wedding day. I need you to just go along with it. Did William decide this? Jessica looked away. I decided it, Mom, because I know how his family thinks. If you're up front, they'll ask questions about who you are, what you do, and I can't deal with that today. So I sat in the back row, between a housekeeper and someone's third cousin. I watched my daughter marry into a family that despised everything I was. During the reception, William gave a toast. We welcomed Jessica into the Morrison family. Despite her modest background, she's shown remarkable grace. She understands that being part of this family means upholding certain standards. People laughed. Jessica smiled, nodded. She didn't defend me. I slipped out early, took the train back to Queens. In my apartment, I sat in the dark and made a promise. 15 years. I would give them 15 years to show me who they really were. I owned 51% of William Morrison's company. I'd saved his legacy, his reputation, his life's work. And at my daughter's wedding, I sat alone in the back row while he talked about standards. Robert Foster would continue attending meetings, voting my shares, keeping my secret. And I would wait. 15 years, I told myself. I had time. I had 51%. And I had patience. Emily was born on March 15th, 2009. Jessica called me from the hospital at 3 in the morning. Mom, she whispered, you're a grandmother. I was there in 40 minutes. William and Patricia arrived at 8 with a professional photographer. For 6 months, I visited every week. I held Emily while Jessica napped. I changed diapers. I rocked her to sleep. Then things changed. In 2010, my weekly visits became bi-weekly. Mom, we have Caroline now, the nanny. She's really good, so you don't need to come as often. I'm not coming because you need me. I'm coming because I want to see my granddaughter. I know, but Caroline has a schedule. When you come, it disrupts things. The visits dropped to twice a month. In 2011, I offered to babysit. Mom, no, we pay Caroline for that. I'm not asking to be paid, Jessica. It's just you don't know the routine. Caroline knows how we like things done. By fall, I was seeing Emily once a month. Then Jessica got pregnant again. Lucas was born in March 2012. I found out on Facebook. A photo, welcome to the world, Lucas James Morrison, 67 likes. I called Jessica. Honey, you had the baby. Oh yeah, yesterday. I meant to call Mom. It's been crazy. Can I come see you? Maybe give us a few days. We're still settling in. 2 weeks later, I finally visited. I stayed 30 minutes. In 2013, Emily turned 4. Jessica threw a birthday party. Bounce house. Caterer. 30 children. I wasn't invited. I found out on Facebook. Photos of Emily with a crown, William and Patricia front and center. I called Jessica. I didn't know about Emily's party. It was last minute, Mom, very small. There were 30 kids. Silence. I mean, small family-wise, just Brandon's side. Jessica, I'm her grandmother. I know, I'm sorry, next time. There was no next time. In 2014, I showed up for Thanksgiving. Emily was 5. She looked at me with confused eyes. Who are you? Jessica laughed nervously. Emily, this is Grandma Margaret, remember? Emily shook her head. Later, Lucas asked, why don't we see her? Jessica glanced at me. Grandma lives very far away. She's very busy. I live in Queens, I said quietly. 23 minutes by subway. Jessica's face tightened. Mom, not now. Patricia, sitting nearby, added, "Some people prefer simpler lives, dear." Jessica didn't correct her. On the drive home, Jessica said there wasn't room in their car. I sat in my Uber and stared out the window. My granddaughter didn't recognize me. My daughter told her I lived very far away and was very busy. I lived 23 minutes away. I wasn't busy. I was erased. In the years that followed, I tried. Birthday gifts, Christmas presents, phone calls. Jessica's responses became shorter. "Thanks for the gift, Mom. Sorry we missed your call. Things are really busy right now." By 2015, I was seeing Emily and Lucas 3 times a year. By 2016, twice a year. By 2017, Jessica stopped answering my calls. She'd text hours later. "Sorry, in a meeting." I watched my grandchildren grow up on Facebook. First day of school, Halloween costumes, beach vacations. I wasn't in any of them. Meanwhile, Morrison Capital thrived. My wealth reached $800 million by 2014. I sat in my apartment in Queens, sewing dresses for Mrs. Rodriguez's granddaughter, while my daughter pretended I didn't exist. I left that Thanksgiving dinner in 2014 and went home. I didn't cry. I sat at my sewing machine and hemmed a dress. The rhythm of the needle calmed me. Stitch by stitch, I reminded myself patience. I'd promised myself 15 years. 6 years down, 9 more to go. I had time. I could be patient for 9 more years. People ask what I did with $800 million in 2015. The same thing I did with $800 in 1985. I lived my life. I woke at 6, made coffee, took the subway to volunteer. And every few months, if Jessica remembered, I saw my daughter over an awkward lunch. The social media era began. Jessica's Instagram became a gallery of her perfect life. Emily's first day of kindergarten, Lucas's soccer games, Aspen ski trips, Nantucket summers, hundreds of photos. I wasn't in any of them. Sometimes I appeared in the background and Jessica would post the photo. Hours later, it would be replaced with a cropped version, me carefully edited out. Once I commented, "Beautiful, wish I'd been there." Jessica deleted it within minutes. In 2016, Emily turned 7. Her party was at the Morrison estate. I found out from Mrs. Rodriguez. "Margaret, they had ponies, a magician, 200 people." I wasn't invited. I texted Jessica. Heard Emily's party was lovely. She replied 6 hours later. "Thanks, Mom. It was last minute." Last minute with ponies and a magician. In 2017, Lucas started asking questions. Jessica posted a video of him at dinner. "Mommy, why doesn't Grandma Margaret come to my games?" Jessica's voice. "Grandma Margaret is very busy, sweetie. She has her own life." Lucas, "Does she not like us?" Jessica, "She just lives differently than we do." She lives differently than we do. Translation, she doesn't belong. In 2018, Emily was 9. She wrote an essay called My Family. Jessica posted a photo of it. Emily's handwriting, "My family includes my mom, dad, brother Lucas, Grandpa William, Grandma Patricia, and Uncle Marcus. Family is the most important thing." No mention of me. In 2019, I offered to pay for Emily's summer camp, $5,000. Jessica's response, "That's generous, Mom, but we don't need your money." "We don't need your money." As if my offer was insulting. 2020 brought the pandemic. Jessica didn't call for 6 weeks. I texted, "Hope everyone is healthy." She replied, "We're fine, busy with homeschooling." In 2021, I turned 66. Jessica forgot. She called 3 days later. "Oh my God, Mom, I'm sorry. Happy belated birthday." "It's fine. I'll make it up to you." She didn't. In 2022, Emily turned 13. I sent her a necklace, sterling silver. Emily texted, "Thanks for the necklace." 4 words, no photo, no follow-up. By 2023, contact had dwindled to 2 or 3 times a year. A text on Christmas, a brief call on Mother's Day. Emily and Lucas were growing up without me. Jessica had successfully erased me. Meanwhile, Morrison Capital soared. The company I'd saved now managed $4.2 billion in assets. My 51% stake was worth over $2 billion. In October 2023, my total net worth reached $2.1 billion. I still lived in Queens, still sewed dresses, still took the subway, still invisible. In early November, Jessica called. "Mom, William wants to invite you to Thanksgiving this year." I paused. "William Morrison wants me at Thanksgiving." Yeah, he thought it would be nice. Family. I'd been family for 15 years. He'd never invited me before. Why now? Jessica hesitated. Does it matter it's an olive branch? You should take it. 15 years of silence. 15 years of being cropped out, forgotten, erased. And now suddenly an invitation. This isn't kindness, I thought. This is a trap. But I said, okay, I'll be there. Because after 15 years of silence, I was finally ready to speak. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I went to Macy's and bought a new dress. Not expensive, I still couldn't bring myself to spend more than $80, but it was new. Navy blue, simple, dignified. Mrs. Rodriguez saw me carrying the shopping bag up my front steps. You look different, Margaret, she said, studying my face. Determined. I told her. That afternoon, I called Robert Foster. Are the documents ready? Everything's prepared, he said. The disclosure notices have been drafted. Legal reviewed everything twice. The board meeting is scheduled for Monday. And you're certain the ownership structure will hold up to scrutiny? Margaret, I've been protecting this secret for 15 years. The structure is airtight. Delaware LLC, layered trusts, impeccable documentation. When you're ready to reveal it, no one will be able to challenge it. Good, I said, because I'm ready. After we hung up, I packed an overnight bag. I told Jessica I might stay at a hotel nearby rather than take the late train back, a lie, but a useful one. The bag contained a change of clothes, toiletries, and a folder of documents I'd kept for 15 years. Receipts, bank statements, photographs, a timeline I'd constructed showing every investment, every business decision Morrison Capital had made since 2008. Everything they'd built on my money. I spent an hour reviewing that timeline sitting at my kitchen table where I'd made so many decisions that no one knew about. The investment in October 2008. The wedding in December where they'd seated me in the back row. Jessica's drift from weekly visits to twice a year. Emily asking who I was. Lucas growing up without knowing his grandmother existed. 15 years of evidence that I'd given them every chance. Thursday, November 23rd, Thanksgiving. I woke at 5, made coffee, and dressed carefully. The navy dress fit well. I wore the pearl earrings James had given me for our 20th anniversary, the only jewelry I owned that might pass in their world. My hair was gray, my hands showed my age. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw someone I recognized. Someone who'd waited long enough. At 5 that evening, I called an Uber. First one I'd ever taken. The driver was a young man who tried to make conversation about the holiday, but I was too focused to respond with more than pleasantries. We drove from Queens through increasingly affluent neighborhoods. The houses grew larger, the lawns more manicured, the cars more expensive. This was the journey Jessica had made 15 years ago, away from where she came from toward wealth she hadn't earned. We arrived at 5:55. The Morrison estate sat behind iron gates that had already been opened for guests. The house blazed with light, every window golden, showing glimpses of the life inside. Through the front windows, I could see movement, figures in expensive clothes. My daughter somewhere in there. My grandchildren. William Morrison, who thought he'd built an empire on his own brilliance. I paid the driver and stood at the base of the front steps, looking up at the house that represented everything I'd been told I wasn't good enough for. 15 years. Tonight it would end. I climbed the steps slowly, my overnight bag in one hand. The massive front door loomed before me, dark wood probably worth more than my first car. Through the frosted glass panels I could see shapes moving, hear voices, laughter. They had no idea what was coming. I lifted my hand and rang the doorbell. The sound echoed through the house. I heard footsteps approaching. The lock began to turn. In a moment that door would open. And when it did, I would step through, not as the rejected mother-in-law, not as the forgotten grandmother, not as the charity case from Queens. I would step through as myself, fully, finally. The doorbell's echo faded. The footsteps grew closer. The lock clicked. It was time. A housekeeper I'd never seen before opened the door. Young, blonde. She looked at me with polite confusion. "May I help you?" "I'm Jessica Morrison's mother." Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, yes, please come in." She led me to the living room where Patricia Morrison sat with a martini. Patricia looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Margaret, you're early." Jessica said 6 o'clock. Did she? Patricia's tone suggested Jessica had made a mistake. Well, William is in his study. The children are upstairs. Jessica and Brandon should be here shortly. She didn't offer me a drink, didn't invite me to sit. I stood there holding my pie, feeling exactly as invisible as they wanted me to be. At 6:45, we moved to the dining room. The table was set for 11. Crystal, china, silver candlesticks. I waited to see where I'd be seated. Jessica appeared in the doorway. She saw me and something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, annoyance. Mom, you're here. She kissed my cheek quickly. Come on, let's get everyone seated. She guided me to the far end of the table, near the kitchen door, the seat farthest from William, who sat at the head like a king holding court. Brandon and Jessica sat close to him, Marcus to his left, Patricia to his right. Emily and Lucas were in the middle, close enough to hear the adults, but far enough to be dismissed. And I was at the end, the forgotten end. Dinner began at 7. Roasted turkey, sides prepared by the staff, everything catered except my pie, which sat on the counter untouched. Patricia had ordered desserts from Le Bernardin. Much more refined, she'd said when she saw my pie. But thank you, Margaret. The conversation flowed around me. Business, deals, Marcus discussing the Toronto expansion, Brandon explaining some legal matter. William dominated as always. Emily sat across from me staring at her phone. Lucas looked at me once, gave me a small smile. Warm. The only warmth at that table. At 7:25, William tapped his glass. The table fell silent. I have an announcement, he said. He stood, smoothed his tie, the patriarch making a proclamation. I'm 72 years old. I've spent 50 years building Morrison Capital from nothing. He paused for effect. From nothing. He looked around the table, absorbing their attention. I've built this company into what it is today. $4.2 billion in assets under management, offices in 3 countries, a reputation that spans decades. Marcus nodded. Brandon smiled. Jessica watched her father-in-law with something like admiration. William's eyes swept the table, landed on me briefly, dismissed me. It's time to discuss succession. My hands were folded in my lap. To anyone watching, I looked calm, but inside I was counting. 15 years. 15 years of watching this man take credit for a company I saved. 15 years of watching my daughter erase me from her life. 15 years of sitting at the end of the table while he talked about building something from nothing. He didn't build it from nothing. He built it from my $50 million. William continued, Marcus will take over as chairman and CEO in June 2024. Marcus straightened, proud. Brandon will continue as senior counsel. Brandon nodded. Jessica will receive 3% equity as a family gift. Jessica's eyes widened. Dad Morrison, that's thank you. William smiled, benevolent, generous. And Patricia, of course, will retain her jewelry collection and the Palm Beach property. Patricia raised her glass, to family. Everyone drank, except me, because William wasn't done. He turned, looked down the table, at me. There's one more matter, he said, and I knew exactly what was coming. My hands trembled, not from fear, from anticipation. William looked down the table at me. We need to discuss Margaret's situation. Jessica shifted in her seat. Dad Morrison actually... She glanced at Brandon. Actually, Brandon and I have been talking about this. William raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Jessica took a breath. When she spoke, her voice was careful, practiced. Mom, we know things have been difficult for you, living in Queens, the apartment. We know you've been struggling. I said nothing. Brandon and I have been worried. Haven't we? She looked at her husband. Brandon nodded. We have Margaret, very worried. Jessica continued. Her tone was soft, concerned, the voice of a dutiful daughter. We've been quietly helping you. Haven't we, Brandon, with bills, with groceries? We haven't said anything because we didn't want you to feel embarrassed. I stared at my daughter. That was a lie. They hadn't given me a single dollar. But she was saying it, here, in front of William, Patricia, Marcus, the children, creating a narrative. So Brandon and I talked, Jessica said, and we think it's time we formalize things. Make sure you're taken care of properly. She looked at William. He was watching her with approval. We'd like to set up a monthly allowance for you, $3,000 a month. That should cover rent, food, medical expenses. $3,000 a month. For a woman they thought was poor. It sounded generous. It sounded like charity. Patricia nodded. That's very thoughtful, Jessica. Marcus leaned back. Very responsible. Jessica's voice softened further. And Mom, we've been thinking. Queens isn't really the best place for you anymore. The stairs in your building, the neighborhood. At your age, I'm 68, I said quietly. Exactly, Jessica said quickly, which is why we think you'd be more comfortable somewhere with support, medical staff, activities. William smiled. What Jessica is suggesting is very sensible. Jessica looked at me. There's a beautiful senior living facility in Parsippany, New Jersey. It's clean, safe. They have nurses on staff, a dining room. We'd set you up with a nice apartment there. You'd sell the Queen's place, which honestly, Mom, you should have done years ago and use that money for the facility fees. She paused. And the best part is you'd be close to medical care, and you wouldn't have to worry about being a burden. The table was silent. Emily stared at her plate. Lucas looked at me confused. I met Jessica's eyes. You want me to sell my home, move to a nursing facility, and live on $3,000 a month that you're giving me as charity? Jessica's face flickered. Defensive. It's not charity, Mom. It's family, taking care of family. William chimed in. Margaret, I think you should consider this carefully. Jessica and Brandon are offering you security, stability. Pride doesn't pay bills. He said it kindly, paternalistically, as if he was doing me a favor. Marcus laughed. Honestly, I don't know why you're still in Queens anyway. A facility in New Jersey sounds perfect, much more appropriate. Patricia raised her glass. To family, taking care of our own. Jessica looked at me, waiting. She expected me to say thank you. She expected me to be grateful. I opened my mouth to respond, but William cut me off. You don't need to decide right now, Margaret, but I think we all think this is the right move. You'll be comfortable, cared for, and Jessica and Brandon won't have to worry about you anymore. He smiled. After all, you're getting older, and frankly, your current living situation is, well, it's not really befitting the family Jessica has married into. I looked at my daughter. She didn't flinch, didn't apologize. She looked at me and nodded, as if to say, yes, that's exactly right. So, William said, do you agree this is best? The room was silent. Everyone was watching me. Emily's eyes were wide. Lucas looked like he wanted to say something but didn't dare. Jessica's face was calm, expectant. She'd orchestrated this, the allowance, the facility, the narrative that they'd been helping me all along. She'd set me up to be removed, cleanly, kindly, with everyone's approval. I folded my napkin, slowly, stood up, looked at Jessica, at William, at Marcus, at Patricia, at my daughter, who had just tried to erase me completely. Jessica, I said quietly, can I speak with you privately? Jessica blinked. Mom, I don't think... Privately. William waved his hand. Let her speak, Jessica. She's emotional. That's understandable. Jessica stood reluctant. We walked into the hallway, and that's when everything changed. We stood in the hallway, away from the dining room, away from their eyes. Jessica crossed her arms. Mom, please don't make a scene. A scene. You know what I mean? This is a good thing. We're trying to help you. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. Designer dress, perfect hair, jewelry that cost more than most people made in a year. You haven't given me a single dollar, Jessica. She blinked. What? You said you've been quietly helping me, paying my bills, my groceries. That's not true. Her face flushed. Well, we've been planning to... You lied. In front of everyone. You created a story that makes you look generous and me look pathetic. I wasn't, Mom. You're twisting this. You want me to sell my home, move to a nursing facility in New Jersey, live on your charity, and disappear. Jessica's voice hardened. Is that really so terrible? You're 68 years old. You live alone in a cramped apartment in Queens. You sew clothes for $20 an hour. Maybe it is time to accept help. From you? Yes, from me. I'm your daughter. I'm trying to take care of you. You seated me in the back row at your wedding, Jessica. She froze. You told Emily I live far away. You crop me out of family photos. You forget to invite me to school events. And now you want to send me to New Jersey so you don't have to think about me at all. That's not fair, isn't it? Jessica's eyes filled with tears, but they were angry tears. You don't understand what it's like, Mom, being part of this family, the expectations, the standards. I've worked so hard to fit in. And every time you show up in your worn-out clothes talking about sewing and queens, I have to explain you, defend you, make excuses for why my mother is poor. She didn't answer. I nodded slowly. You're ashamed of me. I'm not. You are. You've been ashamed of me since the day you met Brandon, and instead of dealing with that, you decided it would be easier if I just went away. Jessica wiped her eyes. This isn't about shame. This is about what's best for everyone, including you. $3,000 a month and a nursing home in Parsippany is what's best for me. Yes, her voice rose. Yes, Mom, because right now you're an embarrassment, and I can't keep doing this. The words hung between us. An embarrassment. My daughter, my Jessica. The little girl I raised alone after James died. She looked at me with something close to resentment. I have to get back, she said quietly. They're waiting. Go ahead. Are you coming? No, I'm leaving. Her eyes widened. Mom, you can't just walk out. Watch me. I walked to the front door, got my coat. Jessica followed. If you leave now, it's going to look like what, Jessica? Like I'm rude, ungrateful, let them think whatever they want. Mom. I turned, looked at her one last time. You should think very carefully about what you've done tonight, because one day you're going to understand exactly what you threw away. I called an Uber. 23 minutes later, I was back in Queens. I made tea, sat at my kitchen table. At 8:15, my phone rang. Jessica. I didn't answer. She called again at 8:30, 8:45, 9. Finally, she texted Mom, please. Can we talk? I typed back, not tonight. At 9:15, I called Robert Foster. Robert, it's Margaret. Margaret, it's late. Is everything all right? No, it's not. I need you to do something for me. Of course. Tomorrow morning, first thing, I want you to file disclosure documents with the SEC, full ownership structure of MS Holdings, LLC. I want every board member of Morrison Capital notified that there will be an emergency shareholder meeting. Monday, 2 p.m. Silence. Margaret, are you sure? I'm sure. This will change everything. I know. Once you do this, there's no going back. I looked around my small kitchen, the table where I'd sewn thousands of dresses, the window that looked out over Queens. I'm not going back, Robert. I'm moving forward. File everything. Tomorrow. Understood. I hung up, sat in the dark. In 72 hours, I would walk into a boardroom in Manhattan and reveal that I owned 51% of a company worth over $4 billion. William Morrison would lose everything, and my daughter would finally understand who her mother really was. I didn't cry. I poured another cup of tea, and I waited for Monday. If you're still here, comment a number from 1 to 8 so I know you're still with me. And tell me if you were in my place after being treated like that. Would you walk away quietly, or would you come back and take the seat they never expected you to claim? The next part is where things take a sharp turn. Please note the following story includes some dramatized elements for storytelling and educational purposes. Some details may be fictional. If you'd rather not continue, you're free to stop here. Monday morning, I woke at 5. Not because I was anxious, because I was ready. I'd been ready for 15 years. I made coffee and watched the sunrise. The same view I'd had for 43 years. Small yards, fences, neighbors' houses. By tonight, everything would be different. At 7, I went to the salon. Maria, who'd cut my hair for 20 years, raised her eyebrows when I asked for professional styling. You have a job interview, Margaret. Something like that. I wore the navy suit I'd bought months ago. Professional, confident. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who belonged in boardrooms. Mrs. Rodriguez was watering plants when I left. She stared. Margaret, you look powerful. Thank you. I feel powerful. At 9 that morning, 51 floors above Manhattan, William Morrison received a certified letter. His assistant brought it during a meeting with Marcus. He opened it casually. Then his face went white. Notice of emergency shareholder meeting. Called by MS Holdings, LLC. Monday, November 27th, 2023, 2:00 p.m. Mandatory attendance all board members. What the hell? William demanded. MS Holdings is calling a meeting. They've been silent for 15 years. What do they want now? He called his lawyer immediately. Find out who owns MS Holdings. I want a name. By 10 o'clock, the lawyer called back, voice tight. Sir, I've tried tracing the beneficial ownership through Delaware filings. There are multiple layers offshore trusts, nominee directors in 3 jurisdictions. Whoever owns this has been very careful to remain anonymous for 15 years. But Robert Foster has been our contact, William said impatiently. Just call him. I did, sir. He said he's acting as legal counsel and registered agent only. He won't disclose the beneficial owner until the meeting at 2 p.m. William laughed coldly. Some faceless billionaire thinks they can walk into my boardroom after 15 years of taking dividends and saying nothing. Let them try. Sir. The lawyer hesitated. They've invoked Section 7.3 of the operating agreement. Control transfer provisions. If you don't attend, they can remove you in absentia. Fine, William snapped. I'll be there, and I want our entire legal team present. If someone's trying to take my company, they're going to have a fight. At 10:15, he called Jessica. Your mother was very rude last night, he said. Walking out like that. I was trying to help her. I know, William. I'm sorry. She's just stubborn. Well, I have bigger problems now. Some investor is calling an emergency meeting. Probably wants to push me out now that I've announced succession plans. Can you believe it after everything I've built? Jessica made sympathetic noises. She had no idea that in 4 hours her entire world would shatter. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, the Morrison Capital boardroom filled with tense men. William sat rigidly at the head of the mahogany table. Marcus stood near the windows, arms crossed. The 3 independent board members whispered urgently. Corporate lawyers lined the walls, ready for battle. Everyone was waiting. No one knew what was coming. Robert Foster sat calmly at one side, briefcase closed, expression neutral. William kept glaring at him, but Robert gave nothing away. At 2:05, the door opened. I walked in flanked by Robert and a financial advisor. William looked at me, then looked past me, searching for the real owner, some distinguished gentleman in an expensive suit. When I continued walking straight toward the head of the table, he actually laughed. Margaret, what are you doing here? This isn't a place for seamstresses. Go wait outside for Jessica. I didn't stop. I reached the head of the table, where he was sitting. Stand up, William. His smile faltered. That's my seat. No, I said quietly. It's mine. And as of this moment, you no longer have the authority to give orders to anyone in this building. I looked at Robert. He opened his briefcase and placed documents in front of each board member. William snatched his copy face, going from red to white as he read. MS Holdings, LLC, beneficial owner, Margaret Ann Sullivan. Ownership, 51% equity. Effective date, October 28, 2008. His voice cracked. Your MS Holdings. I sat down, in his chair. Gentlemen, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. My name is Margaret Sullivan. I am the founder and sole owner of MS Holdings, LLC, and I own 51% of this company. I looked around the table, at William's ashen face, at Marcus's slack jaw, at the board members frozen in disbelief. Shall we begin? I sat at the head of the table, William Morrison's table, and opened my folder. Gentlemen, I said, let me walk you through the timeline. Robert Foster distributed packets to each board member. Documentation, bank records, legal filings. October 25, 2008. Morrison Capital was 48 hours from bankruptcy. The firm needed $50 million or it would collapse. William's face was white. On that date, MS Holdings LLC made an offer, $50 million for 51% equity. I looked at William. Your lawyers reviewed the terms for 3 days. Standard equity agreement, board seats, protective provisions, everything legal and transparent. The deal closed on October 28, 2008. One of the board members, James Chen, spoke up. Ms. Sullivan, we've known for 15 years that MS Holdings owns 51%. What we didn't know was that you are MS Holdings. Correct. But more importantly, I continued, what you don't know is what William was planning to do today. I pulled out another document. 3 weeks ago, William's lawyers drafted a new corporate bylaw, Section 7.4. It would have required all shareholders holding more than 10% to either disclose their identity publicly or forfeit their voting rights. The room went silent. The vote was scheduled for today. After his succession announcement, he planned to strip MS Holdings of voting power, then consolidate control with Marcus and Brandon. William's lawyer started to speak. I cut him off. It's a clever strategy. Force the anonymous shareholder to reveal themselves or lose power, except for one problem. I slid the document across the table. Our original investment agreement from 2008 specifically prohibits any bylaw changes that materially affect shareholder rights without unanimous consent. Robert Foster has been blocking this for 3 weeks. That's why this emergency meeting was called. You weren't planning to announce succession, William. You were planning a coup. Marcus leaned forward. That's not. Shut up, Marcus. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I turned back to the board. Now let me tell you who I am and how I got here. My husband James died in 2003. He left me $11 million. I invested carefully. Technology stocks, real estate. By 2007, I had $150 million. In October 2008, I used $50 million of that to save this company. Every major expansion since then was funded by my capital. The Toronto office in 2012, the Brennan acquisition in 2015, the Chicago Tower in 2019. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the room. Patricia, I need your advice. It's about my mother. Patricia's voice. What about her? She's becoming a problem. Every time she shows up, I feel like I have to apologize for her. What do you want to say? That she's not really part of this world? Then perhaps it's time to create some distance, dear. You're right. I just feel guilty. Don't. You're protecting your family, your real family. The recording ended. That conversation happened 2 years ago. My daughter has been systematically erasing me from her life because she was ashamed. 4 days ago at Thanksgiving dinner, she proposed sending me to a nursing facility in New Jersey with $3,000 a month as charity. She did this while sitting at a table bought with profits from a company I own. I stood. I own 51% of this company. Morrison Capital currently manages $4.2 billion in assets. My stake is worth over $2 billion. William Morrison, you tried to strip me of my voting rights so you could hand this company to your son. That ends now. I move that William Morrison be removed as CEO effective immediately, that Marcus Morrison be terminated as vice president, and that Brandon Morrison be demoted to senior associate with probationary status. James Chen looked at the other board members. I second. All in favor. 3 hands went up immediately. With my 51%, the vote passed. Security will escort you out, William. William stood shakily. His face had gone from white to red to gray. You can't do this. I built this company. You built it with my $50 million, and you just tried to steal it from me. I nodded to security. The door opened. Jessica stood there, pale, shaking. She'd heard everything. Mom. I looked at my daughter. Come in, Jessica. We need to talk. My daughter walked into that boardroom at 3:15. Her face was tear-streaked, hands shaking. The carefully constructed world she'd built was collapsing around her. She'd heard the recording, heard herself tell Patricia that I was becoming a problem, that I didn't understand how things work. She'd heard the vote, watched William and Marcus escorted out by security. Now she stood in the doorway staring at me. Mom. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down, Jessica. She sat. Robert Foster and the board members quietly excused themselves. The door closed. We were alone. Is it true? Jessica whispered. You own 51%? Yes. Since 2008? Yes. She looked around the boardroom, at the mahogany table, the leather chairs, the view of Manhattan. You've owned this company for 15 years. You saved William from bankruptcy, and you never told me. No. Why, I leaned forward. Because I wanted to see who you'd become, who you'd choose to be when you thought I was powerless. Jessica flinched. I wanted to know. I continued. If you'd love me for who I am, if you'd defend me, if you'd treat me with respect even when you thought I had nothing. Mom, you didn't. Her eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. Isn't it you seated me in the back row at your wedding? You told your children I live far away and I'm too busy to see them. You cropped me out of photos. You lied to your in-laws and said you'd been helping me financially when you never gave me a dime. I was trying to protect you. No, Jessica, you were trying to protect yourself. You were ashamed of me. She sobbed. I wasn't. You were. You told Brandon I was just a seamstress. You told Patricia I was becoming a problem. 4 days ago you stood in front of your family and proposed sending me to a nursing facility in New Jersey. I thought it was what you needed. You thought it was what you needed. You needed me gone, out of sight, so you could pretend I didn't exist. Jessica covered her face with her hands. Do you know what hurt the most? I asked quietly. It wasn't William's condescension. It wasn't Patricia's cruelty. It was you, my daughter. The little girl I raised alone after your father died. You chose them over me, every single time. I'm sorry. Are you sorry you got caught? She looked up. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Both. I'm sorry for both. At least that was honest. What happens now? She whispered. Now Morrison Capital gets new leadership. William is out. Marcus is out. Brandon is demoted. The company will be run by people who earned their positions, not people who inherited them. And me. You keep your 3% equity. Consider it a gift. But you don't get a seat at this table, Jessica. You haven't earned it. She nodded, broken. Can I ask you something? I said. What? If I'd told you 15 years ago that I was worth $150 million, would you have treated me differently? Jessica opened her mouth, closed it. Be honest. She looked down. Yes, probably. That's what I thought. I stood. I love you, Jessica. I will always love you. But love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. Not anymore. I walked toward the door. Mom, wait. I turned. I need time, I said, to figure out if we can rebuild this. But that's going to require you to look very carefully at the choices you made, at who you became, and decide if that's who you want to be. Jessica nodded through tears. I opened the door. When you're ready to talk, really talk, call me, but not before then. I walked out, down the hallway into the elevator. The doors closed. I descended 51 floors, and for the first time in 15 years, I cried. Not from sadness, from relief. I was finally free. I came home to Queens on the number 6 train. Nobody noticed me. A 68-year-old woman in a navy suit who'd just taken down a 72-year-old man's empire. Mrs. Rodriguez was watering her plants when I arrived. Margaret, you look different. I feel different. Good different. I smiled. Yes, good different. That night my phone started ringing. Jessica. Over and over. I didn't answer. At 10 p.m. she texted, Mom, please, I need to talk to you. At 10:30, I know I messed up. Please, just let me explain. At 11, I'm so sorry, please, Mom. At midnight, I love you. Please don't shut me out. I turned off my phone and watched through my window. Jessica was sitting on the steps outside my building. She'd driven here from Connecticut. An hour and a half. At midnight. She sat there for 2 hours, just sitting, staring at my window. I didn't go down. At 2 in the morning, Mrs. Rodriguez came out in her bathrobe, brought Jessica coffee. They talked for a few minutes. Then Jessica left. The next morning, Tuesday, the news broke. Morrison Capital CEO ousted by mysterious majority shareholder. Billionaire seamstress, the woman who owned Morrison Capital for 15 years. Wall Street rocked by family drama. By noon, I had 47 missed calls from reporters. Robert Foster called. Margaret, everyone wants an interview. The Times, the Journal, Bloomberg. Decline everything. They're offering significant money. I don't need money, Robert. I need peace. Understood. The immediate consequences came swiftly. William Morrison was escorted from his office at 3:30 p.m. Monday. Security watched as he packed his belongings. I heard later that he'd tried to take files, corporate documents, personal records, he'd claimed. Security stopped him. Everything he'd built at Morrison Capital stayed at Morrison Capital. He left through the service elevator, the loading dock, not the executive entrance he'd used for 50 years. An employee, a junior analyst he'd publicly humiliated last month, stood by the elevator. She didn't say anything, just watched. William saw her. His face crumbled. By Wednesday, his lawyers called mine. The Connecticut estate had a mortgage with one of my holding companies. They wanted to renegotiate terms. Robert's response: the loan is due in full within 30 days per the acceleration clause, triggered by Mr. Morrison's termination. If he cannot pay, the property will be foreclosed. William couldn't refinance. No bank would touch him. The house went up for sale Thursday morning. Marcus Morrison was terminated Tuesday morning. His office was searched. IT recovered deleted emails showing systematic fraud, dinners that never happened, business trips to Vegas with mistresses, hotel rooms billed as client meetings. The total $300,000 over 5 years. My lawyers sent the audit to every major financial firm in New York with a simple note: for your due diligence files. Marcus was blacklisted within 48 hours. Brandon Morrison received his demotion letter Tuesday afternoon. His corner office was reassigned. His assistant was transferred. By Thursday, he was in a cubicle on the 38th floor with a 22-year-old supervisor. He didn't complain, didn't argue, just worked. Patricia Morrison filed for legal separation on Thursday. Not divorce, she was too smart for that. Separation meant she kept access to the family trust, but she lost everything else. The country club asked her to resign her membership. The charity boards quietly removed her name from letterheads. She sent me an email Thursday night: "You destroyed my family. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. On Wednesday morning, Jessica came back. I opened the door. She stood there in jeans and a sweatshirt, no makeup, eyes swollen. "Mom." "Not yet, Jessica. Please, I know what you need, but I'm not ready." Tears streamed down her face. "I destroyed everything, didn't I?" I looked at my daughter, broken, lost. "No, you destroyed what you thought mattered. Now you have to figure out what actually does." "When can I call you?" "When you're ready to do the work, real work, not just apologies." She nodded and left. That night she came back, sat on the steps again, didn't knock, just sat. I watched her through the window until midnight. Then I closed the curtains and went to bed. 6 months later, May 2024, Sunday afternoon, I sat in my kitchen with the window open. Spring breeze. The smell of Mrs. Rodriguez's cooking drifting up from downstairs. My phone buzzed. "Jessica, we're on our way. Emily made dessert. Lucas wants to show you something." I'm. 6 months ago, that word wouldn't have been possible. The doorbell rang at 3. Jessica stood there with Emily and Lucas. Emily held a covered dish. Lucas clutched a folder. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, honey, come in." We've been doing this for 3 months now, every Sunday. The first month had been awful. Stilted conversations, long silences, Jessica crying in my bathroom. But slowly it got better. Jessica had started therapy in December, twice a week with Dr. Rachel Chen. In February, we'd started family therapy, once a month. In our second session, I'd asked, "Why did you choose them over me?" Jessica sobbed, "Because I thought their approval would make me whole. I thought if I could be good enough, I'd finally matter." "And did you?" "No, I was always Brandon's wife, never just Jessica." And now I'm figuring out who Jessica actually is. Today we cooked together. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans. Emily told me about the Sullivan Foundation. "Grandma, we approved 12 business grants this month. Mrs. Patel wants to open a catering business like she had in Mumbai. You approved it." Emily nodded. "The board voted yes yesterday." She cried. I squeezed her hand. "You're learning what wealth is really for." Lucas opened his folder. Architectural drawings. Detailed. Careful. "I want to be an architect. Like Grandpa James fixed buildings, I want to design them." My throat tightened. He would be so proud. Mom told me about him, about looking at bones, not paint. I looked at Jessica. She smiled, sad but genuine. I wanted them to know the Sullivan side too, the side that builds things. After dinner, Emily showed me photos, school events, soccer games. Lucas fell asleep on my couch. Jessica helped me wash dishes. Mom, I need to tell you something. What? I'm leaving Brandon. I stopped washing, turned to face her. Not because of the money, because I married him for the wrong reasons. To escape feeling inadequate. Are you sure? Yes, we're separating in June. It's amicable. He understands. The kids? They'll be okay. We'll co-parent. Brandon's been good about this. I hugged her. I'm proud of you. She cried, I wasted so much time. No, you learned. There's a difference. Morrison Capital had transformed under Dr. Patricia Reynolds. Performance improved 40% in 6 months. I'd established the Sullivan Foundation with $100 million, grants for working-class mothers, scholarships, legal aid. Emily volunteered every weekend. Lucas designed the website. Jessica worked there part-time. No title, no salary, just work. Learning to serve instead of perform. At 6, they left. Emily hugged me. See you next Saturday. Lucas waved his drawings tucked under his arm. Jessica stood at the door. Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me. I'm your mother. That's not possible. She smiled. Real, genuine. After they left, I sat at my sewing machine. Not to sew, just to sit. I thought about the last 15 years. The pain. The invisibility. But mostly about the last 6 months. Second chances. Earned, not given. I wasn't invisible anymore. Not because I'd revealed my wealth, but because I'd demanded to be seen on my terms. And slowly my family was learning to see me. Not as poor Margaret. Not as rich Margaret. Just as Margaret. Just as Mom. And that was enough. Jessica stood at my door. She wasn't wearing designer clothes, just jeans and a simple sweater. Emily held a dessert tray. Lucas held a shoebox. They all looked anxious. Hi, Mom, Jessica said softly. I smiled. Come in. Dinner's almost ready. It was Sunday evening in May 2024. 6 months since that November board meeting. 6 months since I'd stopped being invisible. My apartment had changed 3 bedrooms now, with rooms for the grandchildren when they visited. Emily and Lucas ran to see theirs, exclaiming over the fresh paint and shelves. We cooked together. Jessica helped with the salad movements, awkward but genuine. She'd never learned to cook. Patricia had staff for that, but she was trying. Dinner was pot roast, simple food made with love. Emily took her first bite and grinned. This is so much better than Le Bernardin. We all laughed. I asked about William. Jessica's smile faded. He's adjusting. Asked me to tell you he's sorry. I accept his apology, I said. But that doesn't mean I've forgotten. Lucas looked up, his face serious. Grandma, will you ever forgive Mom? The table went quiet. I don't know yet, Lucas. Forgiveness takes time. It requires more than words. It requires changed behavior. I looked at Jessica. But I'm willing to try. That's why you're here. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. That's all I can ask for. After dinner, Emily showed me the foundation's work on her laptop. We funded 12 businesses last month, 83 scholarships, 300 workers got legal aid. Her excitement was genuine. She'd found purpose. Lucas presented the shoebox shy and proud. Inside was a pillow he'd hand-sewn. The stitches were uneven, the fabric puckered. Imperfect and absolutely beautiful. I made it for you, he said. I held it carefully. It's perfect, sweetheart. At 8, they prepared to leave. Emily hugged me tight. Same time next week. Same time. Lucas threw his arms around me. I love you, Grandma. Jessica hugged me carefully. Thank you for letting us come. Thank you for coming. I know you have a long way to go. We both do, Jessica whispered. After they left, I cleaned up slowly, sat by the window with coffee and watched Queens light up as evening deepened. Monday morning, I woke at 6, made coffee, sat at my sewing machine, the same one I'd used for 40 years. Dawn light streamed through the window. Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter needed alterations for a job interview. $20, same as always. I threaded the needle, started the machine. The rhythm was familiar, comforting. I was 69 years old. I owned 51% of a company worth over $4 billion. I'd established a foundation helping thousands. I'd stood up to men who thought wealth made them better than everyone else. But I was still Margaret Sullivan from Queens, still the seamstress who charged $20, still the woman who took the subway and bought clothes on sale. Because I'd learned something those men never understood. Money doesn't define you. It's a tool, not a measure of worth. What matters is what you do with it and who you become when no one's watching your bank account. I'd spent 15 years invisible waiting to see if my family would love me without knowing my wealth. The answer had been painful, but clarifying. Now I was visible, on my own terms. The needle moved steadily, the fabric took shape. Outside, Queens was waking up, my neighbors heading to work, Mrs. Rodriguez starting her day, the world continuing as it always had, and me finally completely powerfully here, seen. Looking back at my story, I want to share something important with you. Don't be like me. Don't wait 15 years to stand up for yourself. Don't make yourself invisible, hoping others will see your worth. Don't test the people you love by hiding who you are. Family drama stories like mine teach us that silence isn't peace, it's suffering postponed. I've heard so many grandma stories from women who stayed quiet, endured disrespect, and hoped things would change. I became one of those women myself. Here's what I learned. Money reveals character. It doesn't create it. Wealth is a tool God gives us to serve others, not a measure of our worth. And love without respect isn't really love at all. The forgotten mothers and invisible women you hear about, they're warnings, not virtues. Don't romanticize them. Don't repeat them. In these painful family drama stories, the pattern is always the same. Someone stays silent, someone takes advantage, and everyone suffers when truth finally emerges. My own experience as one of countless grandma stories could have been different if I'd been brave sooner. But here's hope. It's never too late to reclaim your dignity, to demand respect, to stop being invisible. Speak up early. Set boundaries kindly but firmly. Teach your children that character matters more than status. Don't let silent suffering become your legacy through more grandma stories or family drama stories passed down through generations. You are seen. You are valued, not for what you have, but for who you are. Don't wait 15 years to believe it. Final note. This content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the lessons and messages are entirely valuable. If this style isn't for you, that's okay. Please seek content that better suits your needs.